Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of our first ever annual Youth Leadership Summit. We're so excited that you're here. Since we kind of already covered some of our intro and background and mission statement during the first day, all I really have to share with you all is that I want to reiterate the story of how TreePeople got started. We were started in 1973 by a 15-year-old named Andy Lipkiss. And I think that's so important to share with you all and super relevant because he was a youth leader, and everybody here, regardless of where you are in your leadership stage, is a youth leader, right? And all of your ideas are valuable, they matter. We are here to support you and help you make all of your big ideas come to life. I'm sure many of you are familiar with how to use Zoom, but just in case, here is a little graphic that kind of shows you where you can use your reactions, how to raise your hand, add to the chat, change your view. Please go ahead and ask questions. We do have Isabel and Carissa here for technical support. They have a little tree by their name. All TreePeople staff here have a little tree. So if you need help, please reach out to them. They would be more than happy to help you out.
Also, just want to say that I'm putting the agenda link in the chat. So if you are, if you weren't there yesterday, there's the agenda. Check it out.
Thank you so much. Again, we as TreePeople are here to support you. And our mission statement is to inspire, engage, and support people to take personal responsibility for the urban environment, making it safe, healthy, fun, and sustainable, and to share our process as a model for the world. Now,
Maria, the screen's not changing, by the way. It's still the first slide.
No way. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for catching that, Emmy. I really appreciate it. So, during yesterday's land acknowledgement, we learned that the 3 primary tribes that inhabited our beloved LA were the Chumash, Tongva, and Tataviam people. And because I don't have a need to rely on native plants in the way that they did, I would like to admit that my knowledge will probably remain limited, but to honor the indigenous people who have cared for our home throughout the years, I thought I'd bring you all a very tiny presentation sharing a bit of information on the native plants and the way they've been used historically. So we're going to start off with the white sage. I would love to know if any of you recognize this plant, so let me know in the chat. And if you don't recognize it in this image, you might in this following one. This is what we're probably all accustomed to seeing white sage look like. Originally, white sage was known as kasili to the Tongva people. It was used as a hair ointment and wash. And today it's used mostly for burning due to its fragrant aroma. We have the toyon tree here. Toyon is a very common species in Southern California. The following picture, there we go, was actually taken at our TreePeople headquarters in Coldwater Canyon Park. So we get to see it every day while we're up at the hilltop when we aren't working from home. And the wood of the toyon trees was originally used to make arrows, men's hairpins, and dye from the berries. The Chumash tribe, moving on from the Tongva people, used plants for many, many uses as well. And the California Bay is a perfect example of a plant with multiple uses. It was used for making bowls, medicinal purposes as well, for curing headaches and other digestive issues, to repel fleas, flavoring for food, edible fruits. Seeds can be roasted and ground into flour. The blue elderberry was used, the branches were used to make musical instruments like the flute. The fruit was also edible. The flowers of the blue elderberry have many medicinal uses as well. And the wood was used to create small bows to hunt small animals. And now this next slide, oh, there's another image here. And this next slide is pretty special. It talks about the Chumash connection to the oak. The acorns of our oaks that we have here in California are edible, and they became a staple in the Chumash diet. I actually have a little story that was shared by Charlie Cook, the hereditary chief of the Chumash, with our very own Chris Imhoff, who is here. Shout out to Chris. And the story goes like this. So at the time of the Rainbow Bridge, when the Chumash lived on the coastal islands, Hutash, Mother Earth created a long, high rainbow. She asked the people if they would like to leave the island, cross the Rainbow Bridge, and go to the mainland. When they arrived, the foods were different and the people weren't sure what to eat. So Mother Earth and Father Sky created the oak tree. They told the people what to do with the oak tree, how to take the acorn, which is the fruit of the oak, and prepare it to eat. The acorn became the staple food for the Chumash people. And that is why, as long as there is an oak tree, there still will be Chumash. And there is an image of the acorns for you all. And last but definitely not least, the Tataviam people. I couldn't find too much information, so I'm sorry that I'm only sharing one slide with you all. But here we see the yucca and its flower. The yucca was one of the main sources of food for the Tataviam people. And they originally inhabited Vasquez Rocks, the Vasquez Rocks region, which is still populated and contains large amounts of yucca. And now for our event organizers. If you were here yesterday, you might already know my name is Maria Adame. Today, my name is Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, but normally Maria. And I am a youth leadership coordinator with TreePeople. My job is to assist students and support you all and youth in carrying out green projects and being of service to their community and our planet. So if you have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them. And now I'm going to pass the mic over to Kenny so that he could share a little bit about himself.
Good afternoon, everybody. Kenny B here. And yes, like Maria, I'm also a youth coordinator, youth project coordinator. So I tend to focus on waste projects. So if you're thinking about recycling, composting, what to do with electronics, I tend to focus on these types of projects, but otherwise we're here to support with other types of projects as well. So thanks for joining on day 2 of this summit. We're excited to have you here and jump into our material for the day.
Yes.
And I'll hand off the mic to Emmy. My apologies, Emmy.
No worries. So I'm Emmy. Well, today I'm Luffy. So if you know who that is, thumbs up. I always get asked if I watch anime, so I thought I would dress up in anime. And yeah, great to see familiar names. Thank you for coming back for day 2. We're excited to just get started.
Okay. And just to cover the agenda for the day very quickly, we are going to start with our icebreaker activity, which is going to be the same as yesterday's. And then we're going to have Emmy lead a youth leadership panel with 3 very different, all very impressive youth that we have here today. I'm going to be leading you through a little lesson on urban heat, which is one of the leading environmental issues being faced by the communities here in LA. And then I'm going to hand it back to Emmy for a little workshop on how to take on tree care. And then Kenny's going to wrap it all up by introducing us to Alexandra and Kushi, who are going to show us how to create an eco club on our campus or our community so that we can tackle these issues as a group. And now for our icebreaker activity, we have the would you rather questions. We're going to do this as a poll. So Emmy, if you could share the first one. The question is, would you rather be completely bald or covered from head to toe with hair? And no, you're not allowed to shave it all off. There are no loopholes here.
And you can't do any like scalp treatments either. Oh, wow, this is interesting.
Yes, very much so.
It's not as even as yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
It's so interesting.
I'm going to end the poll, share results. I want to know the people that said they would rather be covered from head to toe, like what the reasoning is.
Should they unmute themselves?
I don't know. Just a thought you could put in the chat. Or we can move on to the next question too.
Okay. The next question is, would you rather only charge your phone once a week or not have a camera on your phone? take a look at this. Okay, this one's a lot more even than the hair question. Oh, never mind, I spoke too soon. Huh, interesting. It's so interesting to see the little bars shift as time progresses, and you think it's gonna be one way and then bam, it's not.
It's very split again.
Yep.
I'm gonna share the results now.
Okay, moving on to question number 3.
Oh, this is my favorite question.
The question is, would you rather be the richest person in the world and hate what you do, or have an average wage and love what you do?
Oh, I love this. Oh, we're getting a few people that want to be the richest people in the world.
I mean, it could only be expected, right? Huh.
Very
Still a few. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's pretty much summing up our career panel yesterday, and that, you know, just drifting towards what you love will, you know, guide you more towards happiness than money may possibly bring.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in the environmental world would probably agree with loving what you do.
Definitely. The next question we have on the screen is, would you rather win American Idol or American Ninja Warrior?
I don't even know what American Ninja Warrior is.
It's basically like an obstacle course, like an
Oh,
extreme obstacle course.
oh my God, you're American Ninja Warrior. I love those shows.
Parkour kind of, yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, Japanese. Have you watched like Japanese parkour shows? I think they copied the Japanese ones actually.
I think you're right.
They've been doing it since like the 80s. Okay, share results. There's the results.
American Ninja Warrior.
It's so interesting that today's questions are a lot less, you know, half and half than they were yesterday.
It's true.
And for our last question, would you rather have a pet dragon or a pet unicorn? Come on, unicorns win.
One is like the ultimate like symbol of like peace and like fantasy, and then the other one is just like a fire breathing humongous lizard.
Yeah, the differences are definitely there. Okay.
Dragon,
yes.
right.
I was dragons in high school, so.
And
awesome.
That was our last poll question. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you all.
I think there's actually one more, but obviously.
Oh, okay.
Because I added the bold one from yesterday.
Oh, right. We really wanted to know how many people wanted to be completely bald, so we just had to. Okay, so the next question is, would you rather eat a rotten banana or a rotten egg?
God.
Wow. This is
wow.
so interesting. I can't wait to share these with you, the results to this.
Who are the bold 3?
I think this is the most divided one we've had.
I think the smell of a rotten egg will just like kill you before you even get anywhere near it.
It's very true. Okay. And now, moving on to our regularly scheduled programming, here is our youth leadership panel led by Emi Kusayanagi and I'll let her introduce our 3 guest speakers.
Yeah, so we had our career panel yesterday, and that was to try and, give you insight into real adults, I guess, or professionals that have had a journey in the environmental field. And today we want to do a youth panel because as you all know, as we all know, youth these days are so activated in various levels and various capacities. And we chose 3 panelists who demonstrate the whole from being a baby activist to being a climate activist. And so if you could go to the next slide, we can introduce our 3 panelists. We have Rain Torres from Van Nuys High School. She's a senior and president of Eco Club. And then we have Kevin Patel, who should be logging on in the next few minutes. He is the founder and executive director of One Up Action. And then we have Caesar, our very own Caesar, who is an eco-tours educator, and he started off as a volunteer in middle school. So the order that we're gonna go is Rain is gonna go first, Caesar's gonna go second, and then Kevin's gonna go last, and then there'll be a 10-minute Q&A at the end. So without further ado, I want to introduce Rain.
Hello.
Hi,
I'm gonna
Rain.
share my screen now. But yeah, hi, I'm Rain. If you couldn't tell already, I'm the baby activist. I don't really have like the professional photo like everyone else does. So yeah, I'm the baby. So yeah, my presentation's called A Baby Activist because I'm the baby activist. And I haven't really been involved with TreePeople or environmental activism for very long. But honestly, that puts me kind of close to where a lot of you guys might be right now, which is like looking around at the world and seeing like a lot of things that are going on and recognizing that that you should probably maybe take part in like environmental activism, but maybe you're wondering like where you should start. And that's where kind of I was about a year ago. So, you know, we're both baby activists, so we can learn from each other. So a little bit about me. I'm 17 years old as of yesterday. Actually, yesterday was my birthday. I'm half Japanese.
Birthday.
Oh, thank you. My favorite food is sushi. My favorite artist is Moses Sumney, and my favorite movie is The Florida Project. Oh, shoot. So how did I get involved into like environmental activism? I was actually never really a fan of the great outdoors. I didn't really like bugs. I actually skipped my 7th grade trip to Yosemite because there's too much hiking. So I loved nature, but kind of like from afar. And I did know that climate change was a thing and there were many pressing issues that could affect the planet. But I kind of always figured that, you know, like the adults would handle it. And if I just reduce, reuse, and recycle, everything would be fine. But as I saw more of what was going on in the world with the California fires, the Amazon rainforest burning, the polluted oceans and melting icebergs, I started to get a lot of like anxieties about the future. And I realized that by doing nothing, I was being like a bystander, and I had to do my part as well. And I think it's worth mentioning that many times we're told that individual actions don't matter since it's all just big companies that do all this pollution anyways. But I've really begun to learn that we all have to be active participants in helping the planet because we're all inhabitants of it, and there's a great strength in numbers. So if we rally together and change our behaviors in our homes or schools, there is a positive impact that can come from it. For example, you know, there is 125 to 160 billion pounds of food wasted each year and 234 pounds of plastic waste per person per year. So there's definitely something that can be done by the individual to change, to bring about positive change. So some actions that I've taken are beach cleanups through like clubs that I'm in at school, or some informal cleanups. Like if I'm hanging out at the beach and I see some trash, I'll pick it up. Or if I'm swimming and I see some trash, I'll pick it up. So some informal beach cleanups as well. And more recently, I've gotten involved in TreePeople with tree plantings and maintenance, And now I recently became like a supervisor in the tree plantings, as well as climate justice. I've started attending this year club My Generation meetings, which talks about community organization and climate justice. So that's something that I've started to do. At school, I've also started an environmental activism club. We've only been around for a year and many of our efforts were halted by Corona, but the purpose of our club is basically to create a green culture at school by creating environmentally conscious leaders with education at the forefront. So last year we started planning recycling and composting initiatives. I actually talked to Kenny last year, trying to start that for our school, and we've done a few tree plantings with TreePeople. And this year, we're going to try and have some speakers through Zoom, plan some Zoom assemblies, and bring those initiatives we started last year to fruition and continue educating ourselves through various sources. So some advice that I have from one baby activist to another. Disclaimer, these are all things that I'm working on as well. So please keep that in mind, like I'm working on those things as well. But as I've gotten more into environmental activism, I've started to recognize the importance of these 6 things, which are to be educated, volunteer with intent, talk to people who know more than you, talk to people who disagree with you, clarify your goals, and then get out there. So in being educated and volunteering with intent, as someone who wasn't and still isn't as educated as I want to be on the matters of climate change and effective approaches to environmental issues, I've really begun to recognize just how important being educated in these matters actually is. As much as I love volunteering and like being out and like acting, I've really realized that you need to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And when thinking about an action you're trying to do, whether it's recycling or planting trees, I think it's important to ask yourself, how does this exactly affect the planet? What positive and negative consequences are there? And why does this action matter? And of course, doing something not just because you're told that it's good for the planet, but because you actually know that it is. And then in volunteering with intent, it's important to volunteer because you want to. So you can make sure that your intentions are positive and that you're doing everything with like the best intentions. So to do this, ask yourself how this affects you and the people around you. Okay. So another thing is to talk to people who know better and also people who might not know better, or people who disagree with you. So of course, in talking to people who know better, talk to teachers, friends, attend workshops, ask questions, and you're already attending this, so you're already at a good start. And maybe talk to people who have a historical and cultural connection to the land, like we were talking about with First Nation people or people from other cultures and religions with a connection to the planet, to kind of give you a range of sources to help give you like diversity in your knowledge, which is something that am working on as well. And also talking to people who disagree with you safely, of course. Like, don't just go up to someone on the street that is talking about climate change doesn't exist and then argue with them, because that's not very safe. But maybe if you have like a family member that doesn't believe in climate change, or like if you know someone or a friend that has like opposing political beliefs and doesn't really see the importance of putting environmental issues at the forefront, talk to them, not just to convince them otherwise, but also to see the faults in your own understanding of things, or recognize holes in your argument. And then finally, clarify your goals and act. So in clarifying your goals, we all have goals, but it's really helpful to write them down, as I've learned, because 1, it helps you to remember, and 2, it kind of solidifies your goals and helps you like really recognize that this is what you want to see. So write down what you want to achieve or learn and give yourself a time frame. Do you want to accomplish this in a matter of weeks, in a matter of months, or in a matter of years? And then another thing to help you clarify is to write down like the big change that you want to see in the world, and write exactly what you can do about it. So like, for example, if you want to see less plastic, think about what you can do as a country, as a state, as a city, as a school, and even in your own home. And then of course, act. So coming from someone who, as I mentioned, doesn't like hiking, there's still a lot of, power in going out and seeing like what you're trying to protect and what's at stake, going on hikes, going to the beach, and of course, joining eco clubs or even making your own eco club, as we're going to talk about later today. And then finding and volunteering with different organizations. So the final thing I would want to say is to not be too intimidated by leadership roles. Like this in itself for me is like way out of character. I hate public speaking, but it's really important to try and like step out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself, since this is such an important issue, and take risks because, even if you fail, like you can learn and grow from them. So that's the gist of my presentation. Thank you so much.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Rain. First of all, your slides are beautiful. I know you like lavender, right? It's your favorite flower. So I don't know if that's why it was purple, but it was so lovely. Such great advice as people are mentioning in the chat. And also, I just want to applaud you for like your open-mindedness. I just think the fact that you're like talking about how to approach people with differing opinions, that is so wise and ahead of your time. When I was your age, I was vegetarian, and that was like my whole thing. And back when I was in middle school, like this whole thing didn't exist. Like I was a tree hugger, people would just be like, oh, you're just a tree hugger. And climate change wasn't like a topic that youth were talking about. And I would get really like discouraged and get angry and defensive, and that just did not work out at all. And so the fact that you already have this like awareness and your approach of being calm and having conversation is just beyond your age. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And now I want to give the mic to Caesar, who is now presenting. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a Q&A session. So if you have other questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can ask them in person after Kevin is done presenting. So Caesar, I will give the mic to you.
Thank you, Emmy. Hello, I hope everyone can hear me okay. And I'm gonna share my screen. I think, I think I do that. Can everyone see my screen? I think so, right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh wait, I think I got it. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm sure I need to do the system preference thing real quick.
No worries, but I did see Kevin is here, so he's our third speaker. Hi, Kevin.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
No worries. We're just getting started. Rain just did her presentation. Some of us are in costume, as you can see. Bonus points if you can guess what we are.
It looks like I have to leave the meeting very fast to do this. Emmy, do you have the...
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to share your presentation?
Yes, please. Just because I don't want to leave the meeting and then come back in.
No worries. Okay.
Yes.
Let's see.
In the meantime, we have a tradition here at TreePeople. When it's your birthday, we awkwardly sing to you. So I'm wondering if y'all want to come off your mics so we can sing happy birthday to Rain.
Yeah, great idea.
Okay.
Oh, this will be entertaining.
Count us off?
Yeah, I'll count us off. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rain.
Happy
birthday
to you.
Thank you, everybody. That was beautiful. Just so
happy birthday.
That was awesome. Hopefully you're not too embarrassed, Rain.
Thank you so much.
It's just a part of being the TreePeople family, we make people feel uncomfortable in the best way. Okay, Caesar, we have your presentation. It's up on the screen, so take it away.
All right, so thank you, Emmy. So I'm going to go ahead and be telling you guys a little bit about my environmental journey. And I guess that starts off where it all began, which is for me, high school. And I'm going to be going over like a little bit of a history lesson, very quick history lesson about my high school, because I feel like I have a lot of ties to it because it has a lot of environmental justice history. So I'm going to go ahead, ask if we can go to the next slide, please. So I went to the school of Linda Esperanza Marquez High School in the city of Huntington Park. That's in Southeast LA. And before, it's located on the corner of Gage and Cottage, really close to Gage and Alameda. And right at that location, what it used to be was a huge mountain of rubble, but how to get there? So in 1994, during the Northridge earthquake, that earthquake actually brought down a big section of, I believe, the 405 freeway. And during the cleanup, they put a lot of that concrete debris right in Southeast LA, right where that school was standing. And it started causing a lot of health and breathing problems for the community members that were like right next to it. And they were pushing for years and years and years to try to get rid of this mountain. And it wasn't until they had like a local politician, I'm not sure if it's from LA or Huntington Park, but you know, they finally got someone out there out of like, you know, years of trying. And then, you know what, that person got a collapsed lung visiting the site. And it was at that moment that, you know what, this place isn't safe, we need to get rid of it. So that was like a huge win in the eyes of Huntington Park and CBE, Communities for a Better Environment, that really led that charge back in the day. And one of the head people that really took up that charge was Linda Esperanza Marquez, and that is why my school is named after her today. So I went there, I graduated in 2017, and I feel like it's a very cool story to talk about just because of what I'm doing now and being able to look back and go to my roots of, you know, how it all started. So next slide, please. So in high school, I went ahead and joined my environmental club in my junior year of high school. And while we were there, I became a volunteer supervisor by going to all of the trainings. And it initially started as something that I wanted to do with friends. And it wasn't something that I had like a huge passion for, you know, kind of similar to Rain, where I wasn't super big in the environmentalism. But I just saw it as a fun pastime to go hang out with friends, you know, cool things to do after school. And I was actually able to get a lot of really good, you know, real life experiences from it. It was, one of those being public speaking, and I was able to meet a lot of cool people. In this photo right here, I want to say this is my junior year, and that was a Josh Lambo event with the Chargers. Josh Lambo was one of the players at the time, the kicker. So I was able to meet him, and this is me teaching some of the volunteers on how to create a berm. So that was like a real world experience right there. Next slide, please. Next picture is also during high school. This was like a typical weekend for us, you know, like high school friends, you know, like just members of the community just wanting to come out, volunteers. And, you know, we felt like a really big family, and that's why I just kept on coming to these environmental events. So tree planting, tree care, I didn't even think of it as work. I was just having fun with everybody else. But I think one of the things that like some people don't realize is that it doesn't need to be a huge event to feel like you're making, you know, like a difference. Because a lot of my experiences in high school was very small events as well. We would have Tuesdays and Thursdays events after school, and those were like really small groups, but I didn't mind going to this easier because I'm hanging out with friends. So if you want to go ahead and click on the next one, please. That is a small group of us, just in a block, like one block away from my high school, just after school, quick lunch, and let's go take care of some trees. So that was us right there. I want to say that was my senior year when I became president of my environmental club. And I was president, I was able to go under an internship with the then the regional manager of Southeast LA. So that actually let me, that put me in a bigger leadership role, I would say, in high school, where I was able to help organize, help facilitate these planting tree care events. And this was all senior year. And I'm teaching adults like 40 years old how to plant trees, how to take care of them. And I think that was like a big boost, at least in confidence, as young Caesar, because you have this person who's typically older than you, but he's coming to you with an open mind, wanting you to teach him something that he didn't know before. And for me, I felt like, you know what, that's actually really cool that someone my age is able to teach someone some new skills. Next slide, please. So after about a year of me graduating high school, I want to say that I left such an amazing impression on our regional manager that I was able to come back, and she offered me a position at TreePeople as a tree care associate. And that was actually very similar to what I was doing as a volunteer supervisor, albeit I was getting paid now. So at some point it switched from me wanting to just hang out with friends after school to like, hey, I actually really enjoy planting these trees, and now I get to get paid for it. So I think that was like a huge win, just because I feel like a lot of times after high school, people struggle finding their first jobs, and they really look around fast food places and waitering, and with this time that we're in right now, I think it's even harder to find those types of jobs. But they're out there, like for me, I was able to find one because I was so involved. And this is me giving a demo. You can go to the next one, please. This is another spot of me during staff doing a planting with a tribal leader from Brazil. So another cool highlight. Next one, please. And now I am no longer a tree care associate, and I am now an eco-tours educator. So what that means is I lead families and students up on guided hikes all around our Coldwater Canyon Park. And this is actually from my very first day having a solo tour with the kids all by myself. So this is a huge accomplishment for me because I feel like all my experiences from high school, public speaking, teaching, kind of really prepared me for this position that I am in right now. And I really love what I do. Even though right now we can't really see the students in person, we're working on virtual eco tours, which is really fun. And also in the meantime, I'm still helping Honeyland Park with their urban forestry efforts. So if you can go to the next one. And I think one of the cool things that we do is just most recently we did a fruit tree giveaway. And that's me trying to be in the right attire for the times, but it was a huge success, and I'm having a lot of fun, both giving back to the community where I went to high school in, and also working on a program to teach future environmentalists the importance of the environment. And I think the biggest takeaway is just for me being able to set that seed in a child and have them want to be an environmentalist down the future, because I know I'm not going to touch every single kid with the beauty of nature, but that's okay. I think right now what it's working on, it's getting ready for the next generation, and I think that's really cool. So that's what I'm doing right now. Out of high school, was an environmentalist for about 5 years. I have a job now here with TreePeople, awesome. And hopefully I can have a lot more experiences with volunteers and teaching students down the line. So I think that concludes my presentation, and I'm gonna hand it back off to Emmy.
Thank you, Caesar. That was a great journey. You took us through your TreePeople, the start of your TreePeople career, and where you've ended up, which is amazing. You've gone from volunteering to being an eco-educator, and now you're urban care tree technician to now an eco-tour educator. So yeah, and you're only, how old are you, Caesar?
I'm 21. I got hired as soon as I was 18. So this has been the only organization I've ever worked with, and had a lot of fun. Still is a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome that you're 21 and you've already been through like 3 different, I guess, positions with TreePeople. So this goes to show that you're never too young to start doing anything. So awesome. Thank you for sharing your story. We are running a few minutes behind schedule, so I'm going to give the mic to Kevin without further ado.
Thank you so much, Emmy. And I'm going to just share my presentation. It says the host can only share presentation. So if you mind giving
Oh,
my
yes.
other account permission, that'd be amazing. And I love the presentation, Caesar. It was amazing to hear from you.
Which
Thank you.
are you other two?
Uh, I have two. The other account is called sharing account to share presentation.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Cool.
Isabel, can you make
I think Emmy, you might have to get
Share
off of his. Yeah, there you go. Cool. Just waiting for access.
Isabel? Our tech support. I also do have the presentation.
Would you mind sharing it?
No, not at all. I can do that.
Okay, amazing.
Okay. Of course, my computer is like overheating today. That's just how the universe works.
No problem at all.
All right. Take it away, Kevin.
Thank you so much. Hey everyone, my name is Kevin J Patel, he, him pronouns. And I'll just dive straight in. I've been an activist for over 9 years in the city of Los Angeles, and just talking about my journey of, when I began my activism 9 years ago when I was 12 years old. It really began from seeing the inequalities and injustices that were happening to my community of South Central Los Angeles, with the food injustices, the fossil fuel industry right in our backyards, to the disparities with our unhoused community members, where they were not getting access to clean air, clean water, and then also just seeing wildfires and stuff like that as well. But specifically in South Central Los Angeles, one of the main issues I tend to focus on is the food insecurities that were happening and how we lived in a food desert. And I love the term Ron Finley uses, food prison, and how our community literally is a food prison where we don't have access to non-GMO, organic foods and stuff like that, vegan foods. And so that's where I really began my journey, during sixth grade, first semester. And then my life kind of took a turn. Second semester of sixth grade, I was actually diagnosed with heart palpitations and irregular heartbeat. Doctors, over 40 cardiologists, didn't know where the problem was stemming from. And I did my own research because I knew that the Los Angeles had many inequalities and injustices, and I saw that air pollution and smog pollution was such a huge issue within the city of Los Angeles, how we were ravaged with it. And I knew that air pollution and smog pollution can cause all these other underlying health issues, such as heart palpitations and irregular heartbeat and asthma and all these other health issues. And so I, seeing that it was stemming from the air and smog pollution, I wanted to do something about it. And sorry, wait 1 second. With that being said, seeing that I was affected by the air and smog pollution, I, said enough is enough. My community is not only, it isn't only me being affected by the air and smog pollution in South Central Los Angeles. It's my community that's being affected by the air and smog pollution and all these other inequalities. And I wanted to do something about it. So I said enough is enough. So I stood up, and I've been advocating ever since. If you can go to the next slide, I would love to explain the next slide. But this is just me. Over the years, I've been able to participate in multiple climate strikes, participate in multiple activations. As you can see, I'm in one of the photos, I'm there with, I had the privilege of speaking at Fire Drill Fridays, which Jane Fonda started, and I'm side by side by Jane Fonda. And then I'm also, there was a strike that we held during the reign of last year of 2019, where we were demanding, not only Governor Newsom, who is permitting new fossil fuels, but to also demanding of the mayor to set back 1,200 foot buffer from communities and schools and stuff like that, from oil drilling sites from the most marginalized communities. And so those are just some of the actions that have been taking place. Because seeing that, I was affected, and seeing in how everything was connected, from the fossil fuel industry to air pollution and smog pollution to the food insecurities, I really just wanted to focus on the fossil fuel industry, because that here in the state of California, the fossil fuel industry is literally not only impacting the most marginalized low-income communities, is causing all these other, health issues, other problems, environmental racism within our communities. And so that has been a better part of my life. I've been fighting for against the fossil fuel industry for causing not only the health issues that communities are going through in Wilmington, in South Central Los Angeles, and all over Southern California and in California, but making sure that, that air pollution is also talked about and how that connects with the fossil fuel industry, because I was directly impacted by the air and smog pollution that Los Angeles is ravaged with. Emmy, if you can move on to the next slide, that would be amazing. And this, this picture was of last year in 2019 when Greta Thunberg came, which a lot of people know who Greta is. She is credited for starting the youth climate movement, and which is, been called many names: Youth Climate Strike, Fridays for Future, all these amazing, young activations. 9 years ago, there wasn't no youth climate movement. There was an environmental movement, but mainly it was, predominantly white led, and there weren't people of color, and so there wasn't resources enough. And so I'll get back into how that ties into what I'm doing now. But Greta came, and we planned to action around Governor Newsom again, because Governor Newsom is still failing. Politicians love to talk the talk, but they fail to walk the walk, right? They love giving us promises about, stopping the fossil fuel industry and how they're going to be implementing bold climate solutions and policies and motions and stuff like that. But yet again, they fail at that basic need for Californians and Angelenos themselves. And so, as you can see on the poster, it says, "It's your last chance to choose our future or fossil fuels," at which, it got the attention of Governor Newsom and his wife, which his wife reached out to us to basically set up a meeting, which was interesting to see. So it was a really huge impact with that. And we mainly focused on the indigenous communities and the Black and Brown communities that are being affected by the fossil fuel industry and all the other environmental racism and just all the other social justice issues that were happening. So yeah, that was a huge part of what we did last year. If you can go to the next slide, Emmy, that would be amazing. So you can see that, as you can see, Greta's speaking, and then a good friend of mine, Nayeli Cabo, who was recently diagnosed with cancer. She's also been fighting for well over a decade, and to this day still remains an inspiration to me. She was living near a fossil fuel drilling site where she was, literally fighting. I'm sure a lot of people in South Central Los Angeles and even in Los Angeles know about Nayeli, and her story. So I don't want to, tell her own story, but she's just an amazing human being. I really wanted to just add that in there, that she's been fighting the fossil fuel industry for so long. And, she also felt the effects that, living near a fossil fuel drilling site, she was feeling the effects of it, where she was waking up with, nosebleeds and stuff like that, and asthma. And so if Emmy, if you can move on to the next slide. I know we're running out of time. But this is just encompassing all 9 years of my activism. Literally, you know, 9 years, it's been quite a long time. But as I said, 9 years ago, there was no youth climate movement. It was pretty much white driven. And what I'm doing now is really making sure that diverse voices are really heard and have a voice within the climate movement, but not only have a voice, but have a say, are at the decision-making tables. And I didn't really give my title, but I'm the founder and executive director of One Up Action International, an organization that empowers and supports marginalized young people with the resources needed to become change makers. And you know, that because of the experiences and the lived experiences that I faced during, you know, when I first got involved and wanted to advocate on behalf of my community, I knew that, you know, many young people around the world and including in our nation might be feeling the same way. People who look like me and people who come from the same community as I do, you know, marginalized, low income, that they might not have have the resources to take climate action or even have their voices heard. And so I wanted to do something about that. And luckily, you know, just last year, I was able to, with a good friend of mine, pass the first ever Youth Climate Commission, which is first ever in the world, first ever in the nation. Which has been amazing. So those are a lot of the accomplishments I've been able to do. But Emmy, if you can go to the next slide, which is just an action item for you guys. And then if you can, Emmy, if you can go to the next slide. This is a campaign that I'm a part of, which is called California Youth versus Big Oil. If you guys can, go check out the website, California Youth versus Big Oil, CA Youth versus Big Oil, and sign the petition, get involved, learn about the issues about, you know, surrounding the fossil fuel industry, because it's so interconnected with all the issues that are going on right now with social justice, racial justice, and climate justice. Hopefully, you know, you guys learned a bit or two about me and the work that I do. And yeah, that's who I am.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing your super inspiring and just, you know, story, what you've been through, and some of the other people that you've mentioned. It's just so heartbreaking to hear that the young people are getting diagnosed with these conditions, and it's just so unjust no matter how you look at it. And at this point, it's like, yeah, everything. Thank you for sharing that petition as well. That's something actionable that we can all do today really quickly. So we are actually going to shorten the tree care section later on. So I do want to do a Q&A session because I think that's so valuable. So we do have 10 minutes or so to do a Q&A. If you have questions, feel free to unmute yourselves, or you can put it in the chat. Panelists, you can also ask each other questions. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your stories. Well, while we wait for questions, I wanted to ask, or I guess I'll just ask you all, what are, if I was someone that wasn't aware about the environment as much, what are some ways to start getting involved in the movement? Because it seems like, you know, there's some youth that are really, really involved, like you, Kevin, and then there might be some people who want to be involved but don't know how to start. So do you have any word of advice or recommendations, or I'm not sure, steps?
I definitely would say that they can, you know, everyone can, you know, there's many organizations, climate justice organizations out there, well over 1,000 in communities and around the world, international organizations, local organizations. So definitely looking at a local organization or even a national organization or international organization to get involved in whatever capacity that you have. Definitely the movement needs every single person, whether you're interested in climate justice, whether you're an artist, whether you're a musician, whether, you know, whatever you're doing, whatever skills you can bring to the movement, we need everyone. And that's the reason, you know, that's the reason why the movement is so, you know, how, you know, that's the reason why the movement has been able to grow so much, because, you know, we just need everyone to be involved.
Right. Also, fun fact for you all, not so much a fun fact, but are some of the people on this call. We were at the Climate Youth March last year, the picture with Greta. So we actually saw Kevin speak then, and we were super inspired. And now he's here as part of our Youth Summit. So just want to say thank you again for sharing your story and being here with us. So I'm seeing a question in the chat from Raquel. I asked this last panel, but how do you stay motivated when there's so much progress to be made? I was thinking the same thing. And if you haven't seen the Queer Eye episode where they feature like a sunrise activist, it kind of highlights the extent of like just mental burden of carrying the future, especially when they're straight up being ignored by politicians, like how we saw in yesterday's video with Dianne Feinstein. So anyways, opening it up for the panelists to answer this question.
I think I want to kind of like touch on that, like how to stay motivated, because in at least where my experience, I did a lot of tree plantings in the city of Huntington Park. And I think one of the coolest things for me is since I'm still in the area, we're taking care of trees that we've planted maybe 3 years ago. And I'm actually able to see like the growth of this tree has gone through like over these past 3 years. Like look at all this shade it's produced over these past 3 years, like all this shade that wasn't here before. So as a person who used to walk home from school and now being able to see, hey, these are now like safe spaces that everyone can walk through and not having to worry about being hot. I think that's kind of what keeps me motivated, just kind of like seeing the progress of everything we made in the past and using that to push myself forward to continue to plant more, do our mountain restorations, get rid of those weeds. Because I mean, it makes a difference. You know, you can see the growth like even 6 months later and just see all of that progress.
Yeah, that's great.
I definitely would add on. It's like it's very quite hard to manage. I think I'm going to take this question and kind of change it up in the sense of like managing and staying motivated can be quite hard in the sense of like you're trying to manage your own life, right? And you're also bringing in all these other factors. I'm a full-time student at a college right now. And I'm also running a nonprofit while I'm also doing my grassroots organizing. So it's also trying to fit in that, so my social life. So it's just finding that right balance and making sure that you're not only focusing on the environment, but you're focusing on what you're doing and what your community is doing. I always stay grounded by asking fellow community members, because I definitely know I'm not the only activist in South Central Los Angeles. There's so many activists from South Central Los Angeles that I'm learning and growing from, because we all come from different lived experiences. South Central is quite a huge place. And so there's a lot of lived experiences that I'm learning from. And so the one way that I'm, staying motivated is that, making sure that their voices are also heard and making sure that, their lived experiences get out there, because there's not only one lived experience in South Central Los Angeles, there are hundreds. And I also just try to, stay motivated in the sense of making sure that I find time for myself. Yeah, because you can always be pessimistic about what's going to be happening in the future, but there's always a sense of optimism in this, grounding yourself and just saying, yeah, there is a chance for us to reverse the effects of the climate crisis.
I am just mind blown at just how wise you the three of you are. It's just so amazing. It gives, I know this might sound cliche, but it just like comparing it to what it was like when I was your age, it just gives me as cliche as it sounds, hope. So anyways, Maria has a question. Would you like to ask your question, Maria?
Yes, I would love to hear from all three of the panelists, considering how different your paths to becoming youth leaders are. My question is, where do you see yourselves in 5 years? Or another way to state that would be, what is your ultimate goal as of today for your leadership path?
Awesome question.
Well, for me, I definitely just want to know more. Like, as I mentioned, I just have so much more that I want to learn about and like know about, so I could like have the proper intentions with my actions. So I definitely want to like maybe pick up, like learn about more environmental studies in college, like maybe major in it or minor in it so that I could like learn more. So that's kind of where I see myself, just trying to learn and trying to find actions that support what I've learned. So
Thank you.
I guess for me, 5 years down the line or just in the future in general, I think at least coming up soon, I want to at least get my arborist license after I graduate, and and there's a lot of different pathways that that will give me, but really just I want to look for something that like Rain, that I can learn more. I'm always wanting to see what are the different opportunities that are out there aside from just Tree People, because I'm always going to have this love for Tree People because they gave me my start, but what are other organizations out there that can give me a different experience. And I feel like once graduation, once I got that arborist license, I feel like it'll open up a lot of doors for me. And that's kind of where I see myself, just seeing where it takes me.
Definitely. I resonate with what both of you just said. I think for me, in the next 5 years or in the near future, I think, one of the things that I found in my past experiences that I kind of, try to always look at the strides that we're able to make. And I think one of the things I really want to do in the future is making sure that we're able to continue making those strides, because the fight is never over, right? Even when, and this is an election cycle, once the election's over, we continue fighting and organizing for what we want, despite what the election results are, despite the candidate that we get. And so one of the things I hope to do is continue, implementing motions and implementing, policies that are going to benefit our communities, and making sure that young voices are heard and are at the forefront of this fight, and not only having their voices heard, but making sure that they have a seat at the table. Because I know young people really are engaged with in politics, but we've never been heard, and our opinions have never been heard as much. And so I know that our young people are not only the leaders of tomorrow, we're the leaders of today, we're the advocates of today, we're the change makers of today. So I'm a firm believer that young people need to be heard, and their ideas need to be heard. So I'll be working towards making sure that not only young people are heard, but making sure that we're able to implement laws and motions and things that we need, bold climate solutions, so that we're able to continue in this fight.
Thank you, Kevin. We do need to move on, but I have one last question that I want to ask you, Kevin. What is the biggest win that you've seen throughout your time doing this activism work?
Yeah, I guess, well, I already mentioned it. One of the biggest wins that I've had, there's a lot of pessimistic things I've seen. There's a lot of obstacles and adversities that I have had to go through, when we're talking about the systems of oppression that, literally perpetrate the climate crisis, that are causing not only the environmental racism, but the climate crisis itself, and causing all these other injustices and inequalities, like the racial inequalities and, the social justice issues and the racial issues that are happening in the nation and around the world. One of the biggest accomplishments that I can go back to is that the Youth Climate Commission, having been able to get past that, it's one of the things that has never been done before. And just working on that with a good friend of mine, it was an idea of mine saying, like, what, I see young people coming out. We're able to mobilize tens and thousands and millions of young people around the world. They're coming out to these streets, and I, got to talk to many of them, and a lot of them said that they're not able to take climate action in their cities. And I really wanted to do something so that they're not only are their voices heard, right, but their lived experiences and are heard as well, and that they're able to make those decisions on behalf of their communities, instead of having, adults say that, when you go in college and study political science and then come and talk to me and stuff like that. We're able to actually do it, and have a seat at the table, and really, work with politicians to create motions and laws and things that will benefit our community. So that's one of the biggest wins that I've seen and I've done.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I really wish we had like 10, 20 more minutes to continue this rich discussion, but we do have to move on. So again, thank you, Rain. Thank you, Caesar. Thank you, Kevin, for being here and sharing your stories and answering these questions. hopefully we can, do something like this again. I think the panels are great. So again, just thank you. And hopefully you can stay for the rest of the event, but if not, have a great Halloween weekend. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Maria, who is going to be talking about one of the biggest climate threats that we're seeing in Los Angeles and what natural solutions, specifically trees, that can solve that issue. So I'm going to pass it on to Maria.
Thank you, Emmy. And if you could stop sharing so I could jump in, that would be great. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, and this topic actually goes, it transitions perfectly well from what we just talked about, because this solution that we have for this issue that Maria is going to talk about it helps with so many different things, the public health issues that we have that we're seeing from climate change. So.
Yes, exactly. And listening to Kevin and him talk about activism and taking action and environmental justice and racism, like all of those things apply to what I'm about to share with you all. So I hope you enjoy my presentation. We're going to be talking about urban heat in Los Angeles, which is one of the leading environmental and social justice issues that we face here. And I want to start off by asking you all to take a look at this image here. I want to know what you observe and what you wonder. Also how you feel. That's an important question to ask too. So let's see what comes in the chat. It looks really hot there, hot, no shade. Lots of pavement, lots of asphalt. It's quiet, not enough trees, tiny trees, no old trees, not very many trees, power lines, great job. You wonder what the temperature is. It's hot since there's no shade, no vegetation to cool down the area, little plant life, all wonderful observations, right? It's pretty evident that what we're witnessing here is a lot of heat. And now I want to ask y'all the same questions, but in regards to this image, right? I want to know what you observe, what you wonder, and how this image makes you feel. Cool, many trees, so green. Lots of trees. I want to have a picnic there. Feel cool just looking at it. Fresh, a lot of trees, shade, more biodiversity, crisp air. The air smells nice. Birds, all really wonderful observations and wonderings. Thank you everybody for engaging with me in the chat. Now, the reason I wanted to share these images with you all was actually to start to talk a little bit about the urban heat island. An urban heat island is an area that's significantly warmer than neighboring rural areas due to the existence of human infrastructure. And here is the definition of human infrastructure. It's a physical and organizational structures and facilities needed for the operation of a human society or enterprise. So essentially everything that is man-made and created with the purpose of making our lives easier, right? That includes traffic lights, roads, railroads, buildings, you name it, that's our human infrastructure. And here we see that urban heat island in action. The temperature on the day that this image here was taken was 103 degrees. And I've taken the time to place these 3 pins into the image. And I am going to share a poll with you all to sort of gauge what temperature you all believe that these 3 pins is. I want to see some guesses. And then the poll is launched. Let's see. Okay, the answers are starting to come in. Okay. We have about 50% of the answers that have come in. Okay, 67% have voted. We're getting closer, and this is getting interesting. Okay. I think it's pretty safe to share the answers, or the results, I should say. There are the results, right? So we see that it's a pretty close race between 120/90 and 120, and 140/75 and 125, but ultimately the majority of you are correct. The temperatures here are, whoops, 140, 75 degrees, and 125 degrees. And 103 degrees, I would like to point out the obvious. It's not as hot as it gets. So we really have to take that into consideration. Just last month, I believe it was, we had our highest temperature here in Los Angeles, which was 121 degrees. And we don't have, you know, very detailed numbers on the temperature for these 3 pins that on a day like that day. But just general knowledge, 40, well, not general knowledge, I guess, but a tip I want to give you all. Generally speaking, if you add 40 to 60 degrees to the day's temperature, that is on average what the sidewalk's temperature will be. So on a day that's 121, we see temperatures as high as 180 degrees, which is insane if you ask me. I definitely wouldn't want to experience that. And I do this activity with younger kids, and it's really interesting because they all guess that the bench that the woman in the image is sitting on is going to be warmer than the ground. And I will ask them why, and they all know, well, I don't sit at the bus stop because I know that it's hot, right? And I just think that that's really interesting. So I wanted to share with you all. We obviously all wear shoes, so we don't actually get to feel the temperature of the ground. And so there is this lack of connection between what we know and what we assume, right? So I just thought that was an interesting observation that I wanted to share. Exactly right. I see those poor dogs and animals. Yeah. And that's why they recommend that we walk our pets early in the day or later in the afternoon. But why does all of this matter, right? And I have another poll question for you all. And the poll is, what kind of weather-related event do you think is the deadliest? And there's the poll. This one's pretty funny. The responses for this one. Okay. Okay, I think it's pretty safe to share the answers or the results for this one. Thank you very much. Yes, heat is the deadliest weather-related cause for us here in Southern California. And that's, again, another thing that takes us back to those observations, right? Hurricanes, floods, all of those are things that we can see and therefore seem a lot more grave than we might consider heat to be, just because it's kind of like an invisible killer, I guess we could say. But that doesn't mean it's not there and it's not affecting us, right? So that's why this matters so much. And I kind of want to touch a little bit more on us here in California and how that affects us. So the 3 groups that expect to see the largest increase in mortality are the elderly, African Americans, and Latinos. And I wanted to share the demographics of LA County with you all so that we kind of gauge how strongly that is actually impacting the people of LA, right? Here at the bottom, we see that 49% of LA's population is made up of Hispanic folk, right? So affecting us, I would say, pretty much. And here is a list of predispositions in the Latinx community. So the chance of developing type 2 diabetes increases more than 10% in Latino adults than in American adults. Hispanics are approximately 50% more likely to die of diabetes or liver disease than white non-Hispanic groups. And the reason I'm mentioning this is actually because heat isn't killing you itself, right? It is actually going in and exacerbating pre-existing conditions like this diabetes that I'm covering in this slide. Some of the other predispositions that we see here in these infographics are obesity, high total cholesterol, diabetes, and hypertension, right? So this is putting the Latino community or the Latinx community at very high risk, and they are our largest chunk of population here in LA. And there are also predispositions in the Black community. African Americans ages 18 to 49 are 2 times as likely to die from heart disease than white community groups. African Americans ages 35 to 64 years of age are 50% more likely to have high blood pressure than white community members. So again, very largely impacting our Black community here in LA. But why is this affecting communities of color? So in an attempt to fix a broken economy after the Great Depression, the National Housing Act of 1934 was passed. And what this act did is it actually made it easier to afford a home. We all know that purchasing a home is known as the American dream, right? But prior to this, the mortgage was really only I think the only existing type of mortgage was a 15-year mortgage, which meant that your payments had to be double. So the National Housing Act of 1934 was passed in attempts to elongate the period of time over which you have to pay your mortgage, making it more affordable and attainable for the people of the US. This also brought with it low interest rate loans and redlining, which I'm sure we've all heard, and the definition is right here at the bottom. Redlining is a systematic denial of various services by the federal government agencies, local governments, as well as the private sector. But who are experiencing this denial of services? Who are the communities that are experiencing that, right? Here is a historical map of redlining. There is a key to the left here where we see that the green areas on the map were considered first grade, which could be viewed as desirable. B, second grade, still desirable. C, third grade, decreasing, and the red, which was D, fourth grade, dangerous, right? I think that's really interesting, a really interesting vocabulary choice there, dangerous. But what information was used to determine how each region would be qualified, what color it would be assigned? For this, information like the increasing, decreasing, or static population was taken into account, class, occupation, and income as well, nationality and race, and shifting and infiltration possibilities. This little scan here shows how those went into play, right? We see that I'm actually not sure what specific region this particular scan was for, but we see that the region had a static population. The income, the general income was $700 to $1,500. I actually don't know how often this payment was being received, but we see that income there. And we also see nationalities, right? But what I think is the most telling thing here is the shifting or infiltration, right? Well, maybe our community is looking like it's pretty wealthy now, but if we had that infiltration, a high infiltration possibility, then that really affected the way that this region would be qualified. And I wanted to zoom that map in and show you all what redlining looked like in Southeast LA. So this is a close-up of that. The primary colors that we see here are yellow and red, right? With yellow being the majority of what I see, but we also see a decent amount of red with very few green and some blue. And now here we have redlining in Beverly Hills, right? This one's a lot more balanced where we see red, blue, and yellow pretty evenly, but I do think that there is a larger amount of green that we see in this picture. But how do these communities that we just looked at look today? Here are two side-by-side images, and I'm sorry, the labels here got switched, but on the left we see Southeast LA, and on the right we see Studio City. And Studio City is actually neighboring Beverly Hills, so I couldn't actually find a satellite image of that for you all, but I thought it was fairly close and shareable. So as you can see, there are a lot more trees, a lot more lawns, and an observation that I made that doesn't necessarily apply to the trees topic that we're touching on is I see a lot more pools. And I thought that that was interesting to mention because pools still help with heat, right? Even though they're not trees, they do help with heat. And we see these adverse effects taking a lot more of a hold on our disadvantaged communities like Southeast LA. And in order to do the work that we do, because we know that this is such an important issue that we have to take action on, we have created an LA County Tree Canopy Advanced Viewer, which you can access on the website. I will make sure to share the link with you in the chat, as well as in the follow-up email that you all will be receiving with all of the resources. But essentially, this Tree Canopy Viewer was designed with the intention of being able to tell us where trees are needed most and where they will create a bigger impact. So I wish I had a tutorial, but for lack of time, I'm just going to talk you through what it essentially does. You can navigate through this map and access information about what the percentage of tree canopy is per, well, there's different units that you could use to measure that percentage, but it's really, really interesting, and you should all check it out so that you can see how your community stacks up against the rest of LA County. But we can cool our cities, and that's the important part, right? Study findings that we've conducted here at TreePeople, and I will also share that link I have on hand. A link to a report that is published on our website that contains these study findings and more information on the studies that we've conducted along with the rest of our cooling collaborative. So some of the findings that we had were that temperature reductions often exceeded 1 degree Celsius or 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit and went up to 2 degrees Celsius, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which doesn't seem like very much, but it is a life or death difference. We were able to increase 25%, we were able to reduce 25% plus of the heat-related deaths that we saw, and this would save dozens of lives during the worst heat waves. But I think the most astonishing of all of the findings is that the heat impacts of climate change could be delayed 25 to 65 years. And trees help in a lot of different ways. Trees have so many benefits. The first one that we see here is that trees, that dark surfaces absorb while lighter surfaces reflect the sun, right? And that's essentially something that our trees do. Reflectivity and albedo. The proportion, albedo, which is the proportion of the incident light or radiation that is reflected by a surface. Dark colors absorb the sun and its heat while light colors reflect it. And actually, I thought I had more information on there, but I don't, so I'll just tell you all. To the left here, we see some asphalt, and to the right, we see tree canopy. The albedo for asphalt is about 0.05, which means that 5% of the light or radiation that hit our asphalt get reflected while the other 95% is absorbed. And that is why on a really hot day, if you step outside after the sun sets and you touch the ground, you can still feel that heat, right? It holds onto it until it slowly starts to release that heat throughout the day, meaning that our days are going to be hotter longer. The tree canopy that we see on the right has an albedo of 0.15 or 0 through 0.118, depending. And so that means that 18% of the light or radiation is being reflected and only about 80 to 82% is being held onto. But the most important thing about this is that the trees aren't necessarily going to be, you know, releasing that heat back into our atmosphere. And I know it seems like 15 to 18% is really not that much in comparison to the asphalt, but trees use the sun's energy, right, for photosynthesis. So what that means is we're not going to have to deal with that heat like we would if the heat was being absorbed by the asphalt. And everything is essentially a reflective surface, and everything has an albedo, including the moon. So I thought I would include this little infographic just to show you all how all of these things relate and play on each other. And the second way that trees help is they convert solar radiation into evapotranspiration. Evapotranspiration is a process by which water is transferred from the land to the atmosphere by evaporation from the soil and other surfaces, and by transpiration from plants. So essentially, if you've ever been to City Walk or any other amusement park in the summertime, they usually have those fans with the misters. And that's essentially what we're getting here, right? The trees are going to release water into the atmosphere, which is going to help keep our air a lot cooler than if we didn't have that. So it's not just the fact that the trees give us shade and that they reflect sunlight and that they absorb heat, but they are also putting water into our atmosphere. Third bullet point here is that trees improve energy efficiency and decrease a need for air conditioning units. The sun rises on the east and sets on the west. So if we are strategic about where we plant our trees, we could decrease the need for air conditioning units within the home, therefore lowering energy costs and usage. Here are some other benefits of trees because they are honestly do everything. They improve our physical health, air quality. They capture water and prevent stormwater runoff. They decrease energy use. They increase the economy. They have mental health benefits. They are a great habitat for wildlife. They provide food. They also provide natural mulch, which is the best kind of mulch. And of course, they are beautiful, right? They essentially, their aesthetic value is just as important as all of its other benefits. So with that, I want to make a call to action and advise you all or encourage you all to get involved and save lives. Yesterday, during the closing of our first day, I expressed that we were beginning to host volunteer events once more, and I want to extend an invitation once again to you all to contact volunteer, and I will type that in the chat so you all have it. Volunteer at TreePeople.org to schedule something and get involved with us so that we can prevent and continue to fight urban heat. Let's see. See, our presence has to be strategic, which is essentially what I had already covered. But yeah, Emmy is going to now take the mic and talk to you all a little bit about how we can carry out community tree care. Tree care is just as important as tree planting. It's maybe not the most glamorous, but if Tree People as an organization has planted 3 million trees, more than 3 million trees, but that wouldn't mean a single thing if they were all dead, right? So that means we all have to get out and care for the trees that we're putting into the ground so that we can continue to benefit from them.
Awesome. Thank you, Maria, for explaining to us what the urban heat island effect is and how trees can be the solution to this quite pressing public equity issue. So now I'm going to tell you what you can do, what you and your friends and families and other community members can do to help, what you can do to help increase tree canopy and build a more green and sustainable and cooler Los Angeles. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Tree People's tree planting efforts. So we have planted over 3 million trees with the help of over 3 million volunteers since Tree People was founded by Andy Lipkiss in 1973. And as Maria mentioned at the beginning of the summit, Andy was 15 when he started planting trees. He noticed the nearby trees were dying from industrialization back in the 70s, and he started planting trees and organizing his friends. And 50 years later, well, almost 50 years later, Tree People has planted over 3 million trees. So pretty amazing. I have a quick little time lapse here, which I got from Kenny. So thank you, Kenny, for sharing this video. It's a time lapse of one of our tree planting events. And usually, you know, people think that it takes just a shovel and a tree to plant a tree in the ground. What more is there to do? You just put the tree in the ground, right? Well, in reality, it takes at least 4 to 5, sometimes 6, 7 people to plant one baby tree into the ground. So here is a time lapse that kind of shows all the work that goes into it. Okay, come on, play. There you go. Oops. All right. Can you all see that?
No.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Now you can.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Sorry, there's no music. I believe this was somewhere on the west side. We do plant all over Los Angeles, although we do focus on those bright spots that Maria talked about, the areas that lack tree canopy.
Yeah, that particular day was at Stoner Park in West Los Angeles, West LA.
Nice.
And then we, I think Akesha, we circled around it at the end and named it, as we always do at our tree plantings.
Yeah, we have a little tradition where we hold our hands together around the tree and we name the tree and make a little, take a moment to appreciate the work. And how long did it take you, Kenny, to plant that one tree?
That one tree probably took about, I'd say like 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah, so it's a lot of work.
Not too bad.
Yeah, sometimes with the events that I've helped, the volunteers are so excited to like get as many trees in the ground, and then after the first tree, they're just tired and over it. But people don't realize all the time how much manual work, and so it's a great workout too. Okay, so back to my slide. So why is tree care important? Well, we have about a 70% survival rate of the trees that we plant in Los Angeles through our forestry program, which is really, really good, but that's still a lot of trees that don't end up surviving. And the reason that they don't survive is that young trees are really, really vulnerable for the first 5 years or so of their life. And until they're fully established and mature, they need to be cared for. And you might be thinking, why do we need to care for trees? Don't they just grow on their own? It's not like they're dogs or cats, But this might be true in the natural setting in a forest where there's a healthy ecosystem of support for that tree. But in a city, in an urban environment, there's a lot of things going on that the tree wouldn't experience in the natural world. So for example, trees are surrounded in the city by concrete instead of natural ground. There's also a lot of power lines. There's water pipes in the ground. There's contamination in the ground. There's dog litter. There are also humans, us, If you ask one of our urban foresters, they'll tell you that one of the biggest threats to tree survival is people. And many of them, children or teens, just messing around. They'll see a young tree. When I was in college, this was in Canada, but I remember during St. Patrick's or one of those holidays where everybody gets drunk, these students, they just literally pulled a young tree out of the ground and they were like running around like howling. And I don't know what they were doing, bragging their strength or something. And I didn't really think about it until I came to TreePeople and I suddenly remembered this flashback. And I was like, wow, that's really messed up that, because this tree could end up growing to be this mature, beautiful tree that provides shade, cooling benefits, and all the other benefits that Maria mentioned just earlier. So that's why we need to care for trees. And that's why we're encouraging you all to do tree care in your community. And this isn't to come and volunteer with us. This is a call out for you to do tree care on your own in your community. And I'm gonna walk you through how to do that. We also have material and resources to send to you so that you can look back and refer to it. So building a community tree care team. The first step that you want to do when you when you do tree care is to just explore your neighborhood and map your site. You can use a Google image or you can hand draw a map, and you want to kind of observe the environment, your surroundings. Are there young trees that are typically under 25 feet tall, planted in the last 1 to 4 years? Some of them might have tree stakes and ties. Not sure if you've seen those. You also want to chart empty tree wells, which are cuts in the concrete that used to have trees, which are potential areas for you to plant a tree maybe in the future. So we always want to kind of take a look at our environment. You know, we're not really used to being connected to our geographical area surroundings, but it's really important to kind of understand what your area looks like. So step 2 is form a team and make a plan. A team starts with you. So you can be a team of 1, but also this is a great way to bring your family members, your friends, your neighbors. If you're part of a church group or other youth groups, you can gather them and just say, hey, like let's care for trees in our neighborhood. Choose a name to have a sense of identity and motivation to sustain the momentum. And register your team with TreePeople. We have a Google form for you to let us know when you've done tree care. And you could also come out and volunteer and become a planting supervisor as well. So, and in getting started, the most important task will be to ensure that the trees are getting water. So if you do this, which we encourage you to do, you can choose a day and time each week to care for the trees, or every other week, or whenever you want to do tree care. And you want to create an invitation and let others know when you will be doing tree care and where to meet. So you'll also need to consider equipment. You'll need gloves. You'll need supplies for watering, which I'll explain later, and a little shovel or little shovels or trowels would be great. So with TreePeople's basic tree care, there's 3 steps: weeding, berm repair, and watering. So if you don't know what those things mean, I'm going to go over that really, really quickly. So what you'll notice with a lot of the trees in the city is that there is a lot of weeds and grasses growing right up to the trunk of the tree. And in some cases, it can look really pretty, and there might be flowers or something growing on the grass, but actually we encourage you to take it out, especially around the tree. And this is because the trees have really, really deep roots, and the grasses and the weeds have shallower roots, which means that they're going to take away the water that would be going to the tree, and then the tree doesn't get as much water. So one of the first steps of the tree care is to just observe the tree. Look at the tree. Each tree is different. Look at the bottom, look at the top, and see what's going on. Depending on the soil type, it could be really hard to get those weeds out, or it could be really easy with a trowel. You just want to go under the top layer of the soil and pull those weeds out and put them in a pile that you can put in a green bin. And it's actually quite satisfying. If you know the feeling of like grabbing a whole layer of grass and weeds, it's really satisfying, and it makes a huge difference for that tree. So you want to kind of weed this sort of area, the same area that is defined by the tree line is what we call the size of the canopy. And then berm repair. This is a big one at TreePeople. If you've been, around, or if your families are avid gardeners, you might have seen these dirt circles, kind of like donuts, around a properly cared for tree. And it has a depth to it, and it's quite thick. And the purpose of the berm is to allow the water that you'll be watering to really sit and absorb and sink into the ground. It's kind of like a pool of water that can just really sink into the ground and not spread all over, going on the weeds and the pavement and whatnot. So the berm also minimizes evaporation, which really keeps the moisture. If you take care of plants, you'll know, for example, I have a tomato plant, and if I water the plant during the day, it evaporates so fast, and then a few hours later, the soil is already dry. So the berm really helps keep that moisture and minimizing the evaporation for the roots to really suck that water in for growth. So now that you've removed all the weeds and built a berm, it's time to water your tree. So how do you know when to water a tree? It's really simple. There's a lot of indicators, but a really easy way to know is to just stick your fingers into the ground, dig 3 to 4 inches into the soil. And if it's dry, water it. If it's not dry, don't water it. The top layer will evaporate depending on how strong the sun is, but if you go just beyond the top layer 3 to 4 inches deep, you'll get a really great sense of whether or not that tree needs water. So we recommend a really slow pour of water over another object. So you can see in this picture, a volunteer is holding a trowel over underneath the bucket. And so it's creating that waterfall effect. And the reason we want that is so that it doesn't form a hole in the ground. Because if there's a hole in the ground, it could end up rotting the roots or the base of the tree. So we want to have that spreading effect of the water. And you also want to observe the soil. How fast is the water being absorbed? You want to make sure it's fully absorbed before you move on to your next bucket. So how much water do you think we need? Well, for these young trees, we want to give 15 to 20 gallons of water, which is 3 5-gallon buckets. The green one is a 5-gallon bucket right there. Of course, this is really heavy. If you've ever tried carrying like a big bucket of water, it's crazy heavy. I don't think we realize how heavy water is. But other options is to use 15 1-gallon milk jugs. You can fill a milk jug and water that tree 15 times. You can also use 3 5-gallon buckets. There are these trolley things that you could use to easily transport them. Or you can run a hose for 6 minutes in increments. So it takes around 2 minutes to fill a 5-gallon bucket, meaning that if you run it for 6 minutes in increments, because it's probably going to overfill, you've given that tree enough water. So now we get to the fun part. This mulch is optional, but it is really, really beneficial. Maria talked about it earlier. It's natural material like sticks, leaves, just, wood chips, etc. And mulch is really, really beneficial for the tree because it also has that minimizing evaporation effect. And it also just adds nutrient to the soil. And you don't need necessarily to get extra mulch if the tree is shedding leaves. If you see like leaf litter on the ground, you can just sweep that and put that around your tree because that's also mulch. However, if you want to do tree care like in the most perfect way, we do encourage getting mulch. You can get it for free from a lot of like landscaping companies and arbor companies. Don't ever pay money for mulch because people will give it to you for free. Another thing mulch does is that it keeps the roots of your trees warm when it's cold. Plants do get cold, trees do get cold as well. And it's also going to keep it cold when it's blazing hot outside. So it kind of acts as a temperature regulating blanket, if you will. And then another optional thing that you can do is if you see these stakes and ties, I see these all over my neighborhood. These are stakes are used to support the tree when they're really young. However, sometimes a tree will overgrow it and they're still there. And that can actually be really, really damaging for the tree. So at TreePeople, our forestry team is really passionate about these stakes and ties because sometimes you'll see a tree and the stake is just like suffocating the tree. And, we want to free the tree from the stakes and ties. So if you see one that's really choking the tree, we do recommend, if you can, cut it off. Also, you don't have to. This is optional. The reason it's optional is because it sometimes requires some expertise. So there we go. And people often are concerned about their water bills and how much it costs to water trees. Well, good news is that it's very cheap. It only costs $5 to water a tree for an entire year, which is the equivalent to a carton of eggs. And one study determined that trees provide an average of $505 million in benefits to each megacity each year, which is Los Angeles is a megacity, or $35 in free services provided by trees to each megacity resident. So technically, you're just doing that tree a service, and that tree is going to benefit you so much more than that water bill that you end up using. So I am running out of time. We do have a tree care form that I can send in a follow-up email if you do decide to do tree care. It's super fun. And we have resources as well to support you. This is what the tree care form looks like. It just kind of helps us keep track of what trees are being taken care of, as well as the volunteers that we have doing tree care in Los Angeles. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kenny, who is going to talk about Eco Club, which is perfect because you can form your Eco Club and then do tree care.
All right. Hello, everybody. Once again, Kenny here. I dare you to take me seriously during this segment as I come to you as a bee. But yeah, the next 15 minutes, we're going to talk about, how to start an eco club, how to get going. Now that we've learned about some of the issues that are happening in Los Angeles, some of the ways that other people have been getting involved in Los Angeles, and then some of the ways that you might have thought up along these past couple days or even dreamt up from months past. Organizing and getting into action is the way that we get the ball rolling. So right now, thank you, Lloyd. You'd be fabulous as well. But today, we want to talk about how to get an eco club going, and then we're also going to hear from a great eco club from North Hollywood High School, from Alexandra and Cushi, who started an eco club and also started a group called Earthwise, and I'll let them tell their story. But we will get the live scoop from them. So in order to start an eco club, in order to start, and you can call it whatever you want. It doesn't have to be an eco club. It could be a green group. It could just be an activist group, whatever organization of folks you want to call it. We like to consider this a 5-step program or 5-step process, especially the way that we organize them through TreePeople in our environmental education program. So the first is to investigate. Then you prepare and you plan for taking action. Then you take that action, you reflect on those actions that you have taken, and then you demonstrate your success, and also congratulate yourself, because this is work that you need to stay motivated in. So it's always worthy to reward yourself and highlight your achievements and continue to move forth. So that first step is to investigate. And before you even jump into investigating, the first investigation is to find a team, find other students, other community members, other family members that are interested in similar things, that can have conversations, that are willing to take time out of their day and willing to have conversations that will push the group forward. So you need those individuals that come together and form a group. And once you have a group, you can really start to mobilize and take action. And that's when you start to have ripple effects throughout the community, throughout the school, throughout whatever population you're targeting. And a great way to investigate is to, maybe even develop some infographics of your own, learn information about a particular subject that you might be interested in, and present this information in an easily digestible manner, ways that other people can also learn about your cause, learn about what you're interested in, because this can persuade them to also take action and also have an interest in whatever it is that you're trying to promote. So an infographic is one way that you can learn information about a particular topic, but also to let others know about that information. And this is something that, again, we at TreePeople and our environmental education program can help you with. We can kind of help you develop these infographics and get the word out, get the message out, because that could ultimately empower your group with larger numbers and gain some more support. The second step is to prepare and to plan. So one way that you can do this is to map out, say something like your school campus. If you're trying to do something at school, when we do resume on campus one day, mapping out where particular things are. If it's a waste project, maybe highlighting where there are recycling bins, or where there aren't recycling bins, and maybe you could locate some. Maybe where would be a good location for a garden, where would be a good location to plant some trees. This particular example happens to focus on bins and waste sources, but it could focus on anything. Water accessibility. Could we install a garden right here? Is there water nearby? Could we, any number of projects that you're interested in. It's good to kind of map out where you're targeting and go from there. If you are focusing on something like waste, again, I am the trash guy at TreePeople, so I tend to focus on waste. But if you were trying to establish a recycling program on campus or a composting program, you want to know what types of waste are being generated on campus so that you can divert them appropriately. So, you know, where are food scraps being thrown away most on campus versus where are plastic bottles being thrown away most on campus? And once we do this, we can really start to pinpoint and isolate the target areas. Obviously, you don't really need a food waste collection bin in the main office. You'd probably want that in the lunch quad or in the cafeteria. And although that might sound obvious, it's, you know, it's good to map it out in your head to formalize a plan. And a map is a great way to formalize those ideas and present them to stakeholders as well. And speaking of stakeholders, you know, part of preparing and planning is to conduct interviews, find out these questions: what's already happening? Where can improvement happen? How much are the stakeholders willing to change? And by stakeholders, I mean anybody willing to, anybody that's in a decision-making position. So your principal or your the custodial staff, the cafeteria staff, teachers, students, anybody that has a stake in this project. You want to find out how much they're willing to engage as well. What are the costs of the current and possible future systems? You know, it's always a bonus if something can save money, which recycling is an example of something that can actually save a campus money. So you can easily persuade those stakeholders to promote and jump on board with your project if you're able to save money, because that is ultimately important at the end of the day, especially for the principals and those higher up stakeholders. And what are your available resources? Maybe there are some other schools in your district that are recycling or composting, doing some of these projects already. Can you learn from them? Are there any organizations in the area that you can link up with that might help you with some of the resources that you need? Again, we at TreePeople in our environmental education department can help you. We can help link you up to resources in your area and you know, help you move forward in your plans to get things going. You know, some of my advice that I give a lot is to start small, or at least start where it is manageable. Start with what you can manage. So if it's on a campus, start in one classroom, start in 2 classrooms, start where you can, you know, actually manage the project that you're taking on and build up from there, so that you're not really taking on more than you can handle. We don't want to, you know, see you get burnt out too quickly. That can happen if you try to take on too much. So, and again, by getting more support, more people in your group is an easy way to take that responsibility off of your shoulder and spread the responsibility across multiple people. But yeah, you start small and work your way up, and then that way you can keep building success instead of encountering setbacks or you know, needing to scale down. It's always best to scale up with what you can manage. And also, you know, choosing your project is important. What I'm saying here is reiterating a lot of what Rain said earlier, you know, talking to stakeholders, talking to people, finding out information, talk to people you agree with and that you don't disagree with, and really trying to dive deep into one particular project. And, you know, even with something like waste, recycling is just one realm of the possibilities. We can focus on electronic waste. We can focus on textiles like clothing. We can do community swaps where, you know, it's basically a free thrift store where people come and bring things that they don't want anymore and other folks can take it. Recovering food that's still edible and getting it to food banks and to food shelters where it can be redistributed to hungry folks. Composting, trying to put those food scraps back into the earth. You know, reducing resource waste, like getting rid of single-use disposable plastics on campus. Raising awareness, like an educational campaign, or you can do a litter campaign, or you can collect batteries and ink cartridges. So this is just to say that, you know, there's so much that's out there that you can do, and you always want to kind of focus in on one particular matter. And again, you can build up from there. You can always scale it up as you dive in and realize what you can accomplish. So the third step is to take action, and our action strategy is kind of the 5P system, I guess, if you will. So 1, to present your information to stakeholders. Again, this could be a school principal, it could be your local council members, it could be your parents, it can be folks in your community. Present the information to them, have those conversations, have those dialogues that will allow you to communicate strategically and move forward in a cohesive and collaborative form instead of just jumping into it and asking for permission later. So once you present the information and once you get the approval, you can purchase the necessary materials if there are any. You get those necessary materials and resources and personnel. Then you place them where they belong and promote your program. And then from there, it will blossom and it will take whatever shape that it was designed to take. And once that gets off of the ground, it's important to look back at your progress and see where you're at versus where your goals were marked. Are you accomplishing your goals? Could we be doing things better? And we would love to help you assess your own projects. So feel free to reach out to myself, to Emmy, to Maria. We can kind of help you assess your projects and try to improve them as best as you can, so that it can have as big of a ripple effect as possible out into the community, to raise awareness, to gather support, to gather resources. And then last but not least, you want to demonstrate your success and celebrate as well, right? Again, this work can sometimes be overwhelming. It can sometimes feel hopeless, but really we have to focus on taking action, on celebrating those actions. Demonstrating never hurts, to show others the type of work that we're doing. So again, that others can get involved if they're interested. But really, it's just to kind of keep that positivity going, to keep you motivated, to just really feel good about the action and the work that you're doing. Because at the end of the day, it really does start with small actions, like caring for a tree at a park down the street, or starting a garden, or even just recycling on campus. That it's these small actions that add up and make us as individuals feel better at the end of the day when we do these things, and when we can celebrate on our accomplishments. So with all that said, us eco-educators would like to support you in your endeavor wherever you're at, whether you have an eco club formed already, or whether you're thinking about forming an eco club. Please reach out to us. We would love to help you formulate that and organize on campus, put you into contact with teachers or principals or other schools that are doing similar work. So without further ado, I would love to jump into the next segment, which is our Eco Club demonstration from Chumash Jane and Alexandra Wyckoff from North Hollywood High School, who also started a group called Earthwise. So I'll let them take it away. I know Alexandra is here. Chumash, I'm sure, is here as well.
Just wanted to give a little context, if you don't mind, Kenny.
Sure.
So Earthwise reached out to us to speak at their youth summit. They actually hosted a youth summit completely led by this eco club, and this was last Saturday. And Maria and I were just amazed, so impressed with the organization and the preparation. So we wanted them to come and give you some guidance on how they created their eco club and their story.
Okay, thank you guys so much for that. I'm gonna share my screen and then we'll get started. Is that good?
Thank you, perfect, okay. Looks great.
Perfect.
Right. So hi everyone, my name is Alexandra Wyckoff, and I'm here with pretty much my partner in crime throughout this whole process, Chumash Jane, and together we make up the presidents of Earthwise, which we are gonna get more into the details of our club and how we started it, and talk about our experiences a little later, and hopefully by the end we will have imparted some knowledge about how to start your own club. But first, we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Chumash, and I'm a junior at North Hollywood High School. This is a picture of Alexandra and I in our AP Environmental Science class from last year. I've been, more about me, I've been a bit environmentally conscious since I was a kid, but I never really knew about what climate change is or like how it affects us until middle or high school. I used to think that it was important to help the planet, but it was completely unrelated to politics, and that all we can do is like take individual action and encourage other people to do the same thing. So I always thought like the most I could do was turn off the lights when I leave the room, or like don't use single-use plastics. And though that's incredibly important, the past 2 years have shown me like how incorrect that mindset is. And in order to instate real change, we have to be like active members of our community and really take our ideas to the next level. So Alexandra and I have founded an environmental club at our school. The goal was to really show our school community about like some harmful things that they're doing, like so much plastic usage and things like that, and what they can really do to help. And since then, I've also been much more inclined to follow current affairs, especially take action against like social and environmental justice. So that's a bit about me. Alexandra?
Yeah, so as I've already mentioned, I'm Alexandra, and I am also a junior at North Hollywood High School. I would say I've always been pretty politically aware of the various issues in the world and been driven to fight for what I believe in. I was definitely that kid who would, in elementary school, rant to my parents on and on about different stances of equality I had, or like political issues like the economic system and stuff. I'm definitely an empath. But at the end of my freshman year, I felt like very disconnected from my school community, because when I had first joined in the first couple of weeks, I was maybe in 10 clubs, but by the end of the year, I was in 2, but if I'm being very honest with you, maybe 1. So I wanted to get more involved. And I didn't really think any of the clubs that were already in existence were right for me. So I just decided to start my own club. And I think our generation is becoming increasingly aware of the climate crisis. And I had always known about it. But so I decided to talk to my friends about what their opinions on starting an environmental club would be, and they thought it was a great idea. So me and Kushi decided to work on it together and start it together. And during our first year of Earthwise, we both were taking AP Environmental Science, which is what this photo is from. It's from our class. And I would really, really recommend this course to anyone who's in high school. It definitely helps strengthen my devotion to environmental science. So that's a little bit of my environmental background, but on a less relevant and more human note, I'm really just another high schooler who likes watching Netflix. I think that's an important takeaway from this presentation, is that this is something that anyone can do. If you are passionate about this and are willing to put in the effort, then this is something you can do, and the resources are out there, and that's what we're going to get a little bit more into of how you can do it.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, Alexandra and I co-founded the Earthwise Club in our sophomore year of high school. We had been doing research about like exactly how we would do this, and we eventually thought that it was a good idea to partner with like an organization that could help guide us toward the right path to effective activism. And since TreePeople was based in LA and it had like countless volunteer opportunities, and like it provided us with different guides to get started, it really seemed like the perfect choice for us. And like signing up to be an eco club was easy, and ever since then, like as Emmy mentioned, we've like contacted them a bunch of times for like having them speak, asking them questions, and it's been a great experience. But when we initially got started at our school, it's a bit difficult to get the idea out there, right? So at many high schools, there's events like Club Rush where you can showcase the different clubs at the school to prospective members and like maybe even fundraise. So this photo is like of us at the Meet a Clubs event, where we basically talk to people about our ideas for the club. And I'd really recommend taking advantage of as many of these opportunities as possible. because like even though you've put a lot of effort into your idea and like you think it's a great idea and it is, chances are that nobody else knows about it. Like Alexandra and I spent so much time working for Earthwise that we thought everybody must know about this by now, and then when we talked to people we realized that wasn't true. It's getting people to believe in your idea is always challenging, but it's so necessary to get people to join your cause. We started out our first meeting with 15 members, and there were like a lot of meetings where we had like less than 10 people. But we hung posters everywhere, like literally anywhere where there's a lot of foot traffic. And we talked in a lot of our classes and gave announcements. We posted a lot on social media. And so that's how we try to like attract attention, get people to join and get the message out. But beyond that, I think it's also very important to make sure to establish yourself as a credible club that like gets things done. Don't just be a dead club, because if you have great ideas and if you like start working, people will definitely notice and then they will be more inclined to join. So I know like dealing with administration and like organizing meetings is a little tough to get used to, but once you do, it's a great experience. And as we like adapted and worked towards our goals, despite the pandemic, we've increased membership and now we're like one of the most active clubs on our campus. So yeah, just keep working towards it.
Yeah, so as you all know, no one was ready for this pandemic. I remember thinking that it was just going to be 2 weeks off, like an extended spring break. And here we are 7 months later, and our school is still online. Learning how to be virtual as a club was definitely a huge learning curve. We were used to small in-person meetings, so once the pandemic hit, and most of our teachers had already stopped teaching 3 months early, having those meetings seemed impossible at first. As the 2020 school year approached, we realized that there's no pause on climate change and we wanted to continue our work. So we started to brainstorm ways to get involved and what we could continue doing in this year. And we realized about 2 months before the start of the year that the normal format we had been used to of finding volunteer opportunities and having these open discussions might not be as valuable in an online setting. So we kind of changed our method, and one great way that was really important in all of our things was using graphics, lots and lots of graphics. It's really easy in these online settings to not pay attention during presentations. So you have to really keep it interesting. And something that we've been working on doing this year that have been seeming to work pretty well is incorporating fun aspects in our presentations like Kahoot that keep people involved, and having breakout rooms where people are encouraged to, prior to the meetings, research topics that they're passionate about and then discuss them. And also providing a lot of ways that these people can get independently on their own time, get involved. So a great resource that we recommend is local organizations. They've already established themselves as trustworthy groups, and many of them, like TreePeople, have staff members where their main job is community outreach, specifically for school-age children. I really can't not stress enough how useful these organizations like TreePeople and Heal the Bay and Friends of the LA River have been in all of our meetings. Whether it's a current event that they're talking about that can serve as some sort of background research for a topic, or they're organizing volunteer opportunities or virtual workshops. Reaching out to your local environmental groups and taking advantage of them is so important. They're more than happy to help and educate youth who are passionate about the environment, because we are the future. Another important thing is not being afraid to be pushy about your club. You have to be an advocate for yourself. As Kushi mentioned, when we were in person, we would hang posters everywhere. We can't really do that now. So one thing that we've been doing is emailing teachers and asking them if we can speak about our club in their Zoom lectures. If you're a part of LEOC, advisory classes are a really, really good time for this, because teachers aren't trained on how to use advisory classes. A lot of them aren't sure what to do with that time. and they'd be more than happy to let you talk about your club as a sort of filler as they're making things up as they go. We also contacted administrators and asked them to post on Schoology or official school Instagram, stuff like that. Places like your college counselor and your ASB advisors are really good places to start asking them to advertise you guys. If I'm being completely honest, you will get some no's, and that's inevitable. It's just a matter of not letting that rejection be discouraging at first, which I understand more than anyone can be really difficult. But you're going to get used to it eventually, and those yeses will seem even more encouraging and will make the world.
Yeah, so that was a little bit on, what we can do during the pandemic, but this is a little more on how to engage people because it's a hard time for everyone. So everyone is online, right? If you're trying to educate people from school, you might as well take that next step and start doing it from home. Because as Alexandra mentioned, this isn't like the climate crisis didn't pause when like the rest of the society did. And in a way, it's actually easier to reach a wider audience online because instead of running to different classes or like dealing with faculty, you can just post online and crash Zoom meetings. It's important to keep in mind, though, that because of the pandemic, there's just so many people that are bored of online education, right? And they just can't imagine joining another club and like having more responsibilities, spending more time on Zoom. And that's where creative opportunities come in. Social media is a huge part of that. As Alexandra said, don't be afraid to constantly post, really remind everybody about your club and be assertive. And make an Instagram account, post about your meetings. You can also reach out to like school accounts, teachers, anybody with like a wide reach to your audience to help you advertise. Another thing that's very important, especially during this time, is to cater to different audiences. So everybody will help, but they all have different strengths and they all want to help in different ways. So as you can see here, we even created a TikTok account. Now we post about like environmental issues and current events to raise awareness. But like more than that, it's just a fun project for the people who want to get the word out, but they're also, doing it in this way. They want to be creative. We also have like really quick action items like signing petitions, contacting representatives, things that make an impact, but, won't take time. So, try to include different things for different people. We also try our best to make meetings interactive, which is like the thin line between a club meeting and a class, I think. Don't assign homework or like force people to do anything because they're already, giving their extra time to this cause and like our club. So instead, like maybe, have a short presentation with lots of like graphics and figures, and then encourage them to either like do their own research or voice their opinions and like have a Zoom discussion. You can also incorporate like fun games and activities like the Kahoot that Alexandra mentioned earlier. So like even though you want to uphold a certain standard and like establish that you guys get things done, you also want to leave some time to chat, relax, like try to foster that sense of community because at the end of the day, it's like a group movement and people are going to feel more likely to come back when they, thought that it was welcoming environment and then that they enjoyed the experience. So try to make it as interactive as possible.
So the last section we're going to talk about is what we've done, and it'll hopefully give some of you some ideas. So we've done a lot of individual action. We volunteered with organizations like TreePeople, Friends of the LA River, Heal the Bay, and Food Forward. We've also campaigned for politicians that we believe in and that won't take bribes from the fossil fuels industry and that believe climate change is real and have plans to continue their work in office. And all of these are super important. What I'm about to say is not discrediting them. But the two events that I'm the proudest of are our unofficially affiliated climate strike and our workshop. So unofficially, for the purpose of not breaking school rules, we organized a walkout and march to Pershing Square on September 20th of last year. This was a huge event, and we got over 200 people to walk out with us. In addition to a walkout, we compromised with school administration and hosted a forum where students were able to share their opinions and talk about climate change. We also, this past weekend, held an online workshop through Zoom where we had 11 speakers from various organizations to talk about many different environmental science topics. We had over 100 registrants and covered topics like urban heat, ocean pollution, environmental policy, climate justice, and other various topics. In case you're wondering, you're thinking to yourself, this is something I want to do and want to know a little bit what that looks like. It includes emailing dozens and dozens of speakers and not getting that many to reply, which I know can be discouraging. But as I mentioned, local organizations really are your best friends. They're advocates for us youth more often than not, and more often than not would be thrilled to help. It's really such a rewarding experience getting to educate others and yourself, because I definitely learned a lot throughout the whole process and even during the workshop. If you're looking for a model to follow to accomplish similar things, more than anything, I'd recommend looking into what can both be done independently and then later bring in and incorporate those group aspects. We've considered things like picking up trash in our neighborhoods and then creating art pieces out of them, or watching documentaries together through Netflix, Netflix Party, or Zoom. And the ideas are really endless, but one thing that's really important is, since we're limited in what we can do because of the pandemic, and what you do is going to be a lot on your own, fostering that sense of community is so important. And once things are safe again, for sure, we can resume things like beach cleanups and planting trees, a lot of those classic things you remember. But for now, you're kind of limited in what you can do.
Yeah, so that's basically it for our presentation. Thank you all for listening, and we hope that you guys got some ideas for how to start or continue growing your club and like making an impact. Please keep in touch with us at these platforms. We love to get into contact with other people who are passionate about the environment and who want to maybe collaborate with us, ask us anything. We'd be more than happy to help, because this is like a collaborative movement and we have more strength in numbers, as we mentioned before. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and we hope we wish you the best with all of your ideas.
Thank you so much, Alexandra and Kushi. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your awesome work with us. And thank you for all the wonderful work that you've done. It's super inspirational to hear that y'all went from you two to 200 people in one place, in one meeting. So that's amazing. And I can only imagine that over the next year or 2 years, as you finish off your high school careers, that you will only have so much more success as you continue to push forth and keep broadening those targets that you keep accomplishing. So keep up the great work, and once again, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your work with the rest of us. So yeah, hopefully they have inspired you all to maybe start an eco club of your own, or join an eco club that already exists, and start getting involved, getting your hands dirty, getting out there and getting active. So if you need help, you know where to find us, you know who to call, and it's not Ghostbusters. So before we wrap up, at the end of the day, we've got about 9 minutes left. We would love it if everyone could fill out an evaluation survey that will be attached in the chat box right now. Emmy just posted the survey link. Thank you, Emmy. So if you could just take a minute or two to fill that out, that would be wonderful. It would really help us to gain some insight as to, oh, that is a problem. So let me change that real quick and I'll get that back to you.